Welcome back to the Fortress of Sawdust, and this time round we are going to delve into making boxes. Now there are simple boxes, there are complicated boxes, and this one that we're making this time is going to be somewhere in the middle. It's going to be a fairly large one, and in actual fact, to hell with it. This is what we're going to be making. This is an East India Trading Company document box. Now the construction of the box itself is fairly straightforward, consisting of only one big box joint or finger joint or whatever you want to call it. I've looked at reference pictures online, and this kind of box only has that one finger joint. So that's what we're going to do with this one. The lid is a little bit more complicated because not only do we have the engraving on the top of the East India Trading Company logo, we also have chamfered sides. And that is one of the reasons why we picked up the table saw. Now we may have to make a little bit of a jig that fastens onto the fence here, because when we feed the lid through to make that chamfer, we want it to stay upright at 90 degrees. We don't want it to wobble off in any direction, but we'll cover that as we get to it. What we have is this piece of oak that we are going to start with. This is going to get the sides of the box and the ends of the box. We do have a little bit of a spring in it, but as we cut it into sections, that spring will go away, and if we need to, we'll put it through the planer and get rid of it and square it all up. So without further ado, let's make this thing. Now some of you might be saying, what is a finger joint? Well, this is a finger joint. You see, what we have is we have this with a notch out, we have this with this protuberance, and what happens is 90 degrees and we put them together. That is a finger joint. Now obviously you may have seen boxes where we've got multiple finger joints all the way up and down. This causes a little bit of a problem in the UK because in the States and some other countries, they have what's called stacked dado head cutters, which are multiple saw blades basically put together, maybe 4 or 5, and you are cutting a piece that wide. That makes your finger joint quite easy. In the UK, as we are, dado head stack cutters are banned. So we have to make do with our normal one saw blade. We can in a push put 2 saw blades together, but don't tell anybody. So our box is going to be around about 20 inches long. So what we've done is we have marked out 20.5 inches, 20.5 inches. That's the front, that's the back. First thing we need to do is to cut them to a rough size, get all the ends squared off. The thinnest part of our board is here, where it comes down to 8 3/4 of an inch thick. So once we've got everything cut to approximate length, we'll run it through the table saw and get it to the right height. Now for anybody who's going to use a circular saw, you will appreciate that you don't want to cut your piece of wood directly on top of your bench. You want to raise it up, and what I use are these. These are called bench dogs or bench cookies. So what we have is a cut there, a cut there. We've put our bench dogs underneath either side of the cuts so that it minimises anything falling away when we get to the end of the cut. We don't want to start our project by making a mistake. Yes, we're going to shorten them a little bit. We're going to make them to the proper length later on, but let's do it properly. Plug it in, safety glasses on, and we make our cuts. Move everything from around where you're going to cut, including the lead of the circular saw itself, because we don't want to cut through that, and then we can cut. one piece, two pieces. That piece is for the ends, and we can work with that as it is. We want 8 3/4, which is there. Bring that in. Just lock it down a little bit. Check the front and the back of the blade to make sure that it is straight. Lock it in completely. Check it again. 8 3/4, 8 3/4. We are sorted. Now you may see here what we're doing is we're going to cut the ends of the box. My jig isn't big enough or isn't long enough to accommodate for this length of side. So, simple thing to do, put the fence there, lock it down. We could run this through, take that piece out of the way, push the work over, run it through again. In theory, we should have two pieces exactly the same length. Ta-da! So we have our basic box now. The next thing we need to do is to start making our box joint. Now, layout and cutting is crucial for a tight fit. With these side panels, we take off these sides, because on all illustrations online of these document boxes, the finger joint is in the middle, which will be seen from the front of the box and the back of the box. So we need to set up our table saw now to take this piece off and that piece off. We are now set up to make our first cut. You see, our first cut is up against the line, and once that's made, we can just nibble away all the material. Alternatively, we can turn our piece that way, set up a different stop block, raise our blade, and just cut this piece out. But seeing as we're in this orientation, and I'm in no rush, I'll just nibble it away. Once that's done, we simply turn it over and do the same cut again, and nibble it away. Now as you see, all three sections are equal. That will make it more pleasing to the eye when the box is made. So let's make our first cut. What we have to make sure is that we have the correct height to get to this line. If we go a little bit above, it's not a problem, because that just gives us a little bit to sand away once the box is together. So, simple thing to do, bring it back and then just raise it up until we are on the line. We'll just go a little bit above, I think. There we go. Safety beanos. Double check. Got static in my glasses. So there is our first finger joint made. Now we have to do that end and both ends of that. So both of our end pieces are now done. The next thing to do is to transfer these joints over to our front and our back. Now this part is critical because if we get it wrong, then the joint is going to be loose. What I've done here is I've numbered the joints. Now by rights, all of these joints should be exactly the same as each other because we've used the crosscut sled, we've used the stop block, so everything should be identical. That being said, we do sometimes get little discrepancies between joints, so by numbering them and making number 1 for number 1, number 2 for number 2, we are custom making that joint. Therefore, everything should be perfect. You'll notice that on this piece here, there's a little bit of tear out. By rights, I should have used some tape on the back of that joint when we put it through the table saw. Now, it wouldn't necessarily eliminated it completely, but it would have minimized it. So a note for the future, use tape on the back of them. Right, so what we've got is we've got our marks, and now what we'll do is we'll transfer them round to the front. Now you see, this is the piece that needs to come out of the front. We've marked it, but we have to take into consideration the thickness of the pencil. Now this is where some people will use a blade to mark it, but I always use a pencil. I can't be bothered with a blade. But what we'll do is we'll take out the majority of the center, but we will leave a little bit on the ends so that we can creep up on it and make sure that we have a tight joint. Now you'll see that it obviously doesn't fit just yet. We still have a little, if we just take it back a little bit, you'll see that we have just that little bit on either end to nibble off. This is where we just creep up on it. We want a tight fit, we don't want it loose. So there we have our first joint. Now as you see, it's in there firm, it's a nice tight fit, but it's not too tight. It's okay to use a hammer to get it in, but you don't want to be hitting it and hitting it and hitting it to try and get it in, because you'll just split the wood. But as you see, it's flush. Our first box joint is done. Now we've just got to copy it 3 more times. So there we go. That is all the joints done. The box is together loosely, and so the next thing to do is to cut a rabbet or a rebate on the inside bottom edge of the box. This is to accommodate the base, obviously. Now we can do it on the table saw with these ends at least, because they can go right to the edge. When we do the fronts, we will have to stop. We can either do a stop block on the table saw, or we can do it on the router table. Now, if you've been following me for long enough, you will know that I try to be honest in everything I do. And I'm going to be very honest now, because I've made a mistake. When I'm cutting the rebate rabbets in the bottom for the base, you'll notice that I have an arrow which tells me that is the inside of the box, bottom of the box. This is where the rabbet has to be cut. Unfortunately, with this one, I cut the rebate on the outside, so I've had to patch it. Now, it's not the end of the world. The colour match is good, and by the time I've sanded it down, you won't notice it, but there is going to be some decorative pieces put on the bottom of the box which will raise it up off the ground, so you won't notice it. Now that I have all the joints and rebates, rabbets cut, I can glue them all together. Now it's all clamped up, I'll leave it overnight and carry on in the morning. Good night. Now you may notice that in the background it's got a little noisy, and that is because my neighbour is getting a new roof. The scaffolding's up and they're in the process of taking all the tiles and the felt off. So from this moment on, we're going to hand over to voiceover Andy. Is that okay with you?
Yeah, no problem. Now that it's all solid, we're just going to give it a general sanding.
Now, as you see, this is the hardware we are going to use for this box. We have the handles for each end of the box. We have the hinges, and we have the hasp and the padlock. Now I've ordered these in antique iron. The actual hasp did come with a gloss finish on it, and what I have done is I've given it a couple of coats of isopropyl alcohol to strip that gloss off. It still looks a little gloss, but it's not really, not as much as the video is showing. But yeah, that will be fine. Now the actual piece that we are trying to copy has some nails that are shown around the perimeter of the box, and the nails that I can get from the Ironmongery company cost £22 for 10 nails. Now I understand the cost because they are actually blacksmith forged nails, but that kind of expenditure, because I'm going to need at least 30, it's going to cost a lot of money. So I'll come up with a solution, and that solution is we're going to do a cheap version of gun bluing. If you don't know what gun bluing is, go look it up, because it's quite an interesting process. But this one will involve some vegetable oil and heat, and it works like this. So we take our nail, put it in our tweezers, and then we simply apply heat. And once it starts to get really hot, we drop it in the vegetable oil. And then when we take it out, you will see, if we give it a quick dry off, it is darkened. If we compare it with one that we haven't treated, so there will do for our project. Now, as I'm the king of brief videos, and this one is around about half an hour long, I think we're going to leave it there for this time. In part 2, we will take our box and we will make a lid for it. We'll do the carving on the top of the East India logo. We'll put a decorative base on it. We need to put a finish on it. And remember, it's got to look early 18th century, so it's going to be a really dark oak stain that we're going to put onto it. And then we'll be ready to put on the ironmongery. So, if there's anybody out there still watching, see you next time.
Ta-da!